Do Money Differently podcast is brought to you by Acorns. I've been using Acorns as one of my investment accounts for several years now. It's ridiculously easy to use. Imagine every time you pay for a latte or hit up the drive-thru and your spare change is silently working in the background, turning your pocket change into ownership of great stocks of the companies you likely do business with every single day. You can also set up weekly or monthly recurring investments with Acorns, which puts your wealth creation on autopilot. Be sure to click the link below in the description of this episode so you can get a $40 bonus when you open up your first Acorns investment account. You'll be happy you started your new investing journey with Acorns. Welcome to Do Money Differently podcast. This week's episode, I'm really excited about this guest. I have known Phil Munroe since he was 8 years old when we moved from Cincinnati, Ohio. Our family moved from Cincinnati to Orlando. And Phil is a very good friend of my oldest son, Jack. And certainly I kind of consider him as a fourth son. I have 4 kids, 3 sons and a daughter. But Phil, I've always said that to you. I kind of consider you as a fourth son. So you've got a great story to share with this podcast and a lot of conversation today. Welcome to the Do Money Differently podcast, Phil Munroe.
How's it going, Mr. Todd? Thank you for that awesome intro. I consider you as a second dad, and I'll never forget. And hopefully one day you can make him again. But if you ever get the chance, Mr. Todd makes the best chocolate chip pancakes on the planet. I used to love sleeping over just for those.
Oh, that's fantastic. I haven't made many pancakes lately, but I will do that next time we get together. Well, this episode is of Do Money Differently, sponsored by Acorns, is special, not just because I know Phil for many years, but I said to him recently, I said, hey, Phil, we've had you on. I've had you on as a different kind of video interview. It wasn't a podcast a couple years ago, but you basically said to me a few years ago, hey, I know what you do, Mr. Todd, I know what you do, but I do actually kind of needs a little bit of coaching when it comes to money. So we talked, and you're moving strong with some of the principles that we teach at Young Money University and Do Money Differently. And so then all of a sudden I'm hearing that your business is taken off, and I just was like, we got to have you on because this podcast and the whole company, the brand is all about helping young people 18 to 34 not just manage money differently, begin investing, but also some entrepreneurship, side hustle content and what drove you to do what you're doing, how you started. So let's we're going to get into that. But with all of the guests on Do Money Differently, I want to ask you before we get into the other questions, what's your icebreaking? This is an icebreaker. What's one dumb money move that you made in your 20s?
That's a great question, Mr. Todd. And the first one that comes to mind, it's funny. When I was 18 years old, I am a freshman at Northwest Florida State College. I'm on a baseball scholarship there, and I kept my grades up in high school, so I had bright futures. So I was literally getting paid to go to school, which was awesome. Wasn't anything crazy. I think I was making like 900 bucks a semester, but coming as an 18-year-old kid who had never really had money before, 900 bucks a semester was plenty enough for me to do some dumb stuff. And that's exactly what I did. So I remember that first paycheck I got, I had never seen this much money in my account. And I was like, what do I do? What do I buy? So I go to the pet store and I buy a bearded dragon. And it was awesome. It was really cool to have. I bought a bearded dragon in a cage and all sorts of stuff. And then I remember I'd have some people over at my house, come in my room, and they'd be like, "What is that smell?" And I was, "Oh, that's my bearded dragon." It just happened more and more frequently. I was like, "Okay, I got to get rid of this thing. I don't know why I got this bearded dragon, but it is only a burden on me." So I was fortunate. I had a buddy on my team whose mom was a middle school teacher, I believe, science teacher. So she took the bearded dragon from me, and that was the end of that story. But that was how I spent my first probably close to 900 bucks that I had ever made once I was in my 20s. Um, on a bearded dragon. I didn't think about how I'd have to buy it food, the crickets every week. I didn't think about how the crickets would be chirping while I'm trying to sleep, or if I ever wanted to have somebody stay over, they'd probably be freaked out about that. So I'd say that was probably one of my most fun, not my only stupid money move, but one of my most memorable stupid money
Wow.
moves in my 20s.
That's fantastic. And now after this podcast, I'm going to go on to Google and actually look up what a bearded dragon is. That is funny stuff. Okay, what's one of your best money moves you made in your 20s?
Okay, that's a great question as well. So I would definitely have to say, um, investing into my business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm solely doing this now, but it started as a side hustle, and then I remember I sat down one day and realized this is what I wanted to do. So I kind of made a plan for myself and said, okay, I know I'm working here. How much do I need to save in order for me to go and do this full time on my own? And once I hit that number, I cut ties, and that was probably the best decision I ever made, because now I can focus my time solely on what I'm doing, and my business has skyrocketed since then.
That's great, Phil. And speaking of your business, it's called Fort Lauderdale Prince, FTL Prince, right? You're in
Yep.
Fort Lauderdale. That's where
Yep.
where you are now. I happen to be traveling, and I'm in Orlando today, and not in Cincinnati. But so FTL Prince, uh, you all before we get into how you started that, but where you're at and how you're doing so well now. Let's go back to your days of wanting to try and play baseball after high school. You wanted to play baseball in college, right? And then share that element of when maybe you knew, maybe a combination of you knew, well, this may not work out long term, but tell a story of how this started with your printing business. Didn't you come up with a design and sell a bunch of shirts when you're at University of Florida? So share that
Yep.
story.
Yep. So basically, I played college baseball my first 2 years of college. My first year was in the Panhandle, and then I moved away from there and moved to Gainesville, Florida, and played baseball at Santa Fe College. I played my last year there, and then that was when I realized I had to sit myself down. It's hard when you're a young kid. You think you're going to be a professional, and sometimes your head. I guess my ego was a little bigger than where it needed to be, and I needed to humble myself a little bit and realize maybe professional baseball isn't the best fit for me. I was playing junior college baseball. I didn't have any professional scouts looking at me. I had some smaller D1 offers, but I realized that my chances of that probably weren't too high. So I decided to hang up the cleats, and then that's where I went to University of Florida, and that's what gets me into the t-shirts. So I get to University of Florida and I join a fraternity, and I was super excited to join the fraternity and wear the shirts, and I was so excited. I remember we get the first shirt and I was like, I would never wear this. What the heck? So I was never the type of person to like complain or anything like that. I was just like, you know what? I got an idea for a shirt that I think would work really, really well. And sure enough, that's kind of what happened. I had no idea about the business, about screen printing, about printing, about even making a logo in general. I just knew I had one of my fraternity brothers in my pledge class who was a graphic designer, and I had an idea in my head. So I told him, listen, I've got 50 bucks. That's literally all I've got. But I will give this to you if you help me make this design. So I took a risk, and sure enough, we make the design and I put it in our Facebook chat and go to sleep. I remember the next day, pretty much my whole fraternity had bought this shirt. We had like 85 members, so that was cool. I was like, oh man, people really like this shirt. By the end of the week, I had chapters across the country that had seen the shirt reach out to me saying, how do we get our hands on this? By the end of the week, I'd sold about 650 shirts and turned this $50 investment to about $6,000 in revenue.
Oh, that is, I didn't know that full story. That's a big deal. It kind of mirrors a story of myself and my college buddies back in the day, Phil, that may have not told you, but our listeners can hear a good old t-shirt idea from Bart Simpson of the Simpsons show that was super popular. And we decided to make a t-shirt and kind of had someone put logos on there for St. Patty's Day. And we went back to the screen printer because we sold so many, and the screen printer's like, yeah, no, this is the last order because this might be copyright infringement. So that's really cool. A lot of great stories. There's a story, I just forget this, uh, the name. Uh, uh, the guy at Notre Dame who sold a bunch of Notre Dame Miami T-shirts. You probably heard that story. It
Yep.
just
Oh
went
yeah, I've
nuts.
heard that.
So okay, that's fun. And then okay, that's like your beginning. And you said those key words. You took a little bit of a risk. You gave someone
Yep.
$50 at age whatever, young. And so that was your beginning risk. What do you tell me more? Actually, before I talk about risk, tell me more of what you're what are you selling to customers? You know, your screen printing. Just give examples of what you offer.
Oh, so we're a fully custom print shop. So say you need t-shirts, you need hats, you need a sign, you need a banner for your business. We can handle all of that. We work a lot with restaurants, hotels, and other businesses like construction companies. Pretty much any local business here in Fort Lauderdale or in the States that needs printing done, we can do it. And something we really specialize in are our custom patches. Those are really hot right now. So the hats with the patches and everything on them, that's we do
Yeah.
a ton of those.
Okay. So do you have a lot of repeat business?
Definitely. Definitely.
Okay, so let's talk about repeat business and really owning a business. Uh, you correct me if I'm wrong, but when people get to know Phil Monroe, they're like now they're buying from you the second time, and even the first time. Once they get to know you and your ability to communicate well, right, with the customer, the ability to be flexible on design. Okay, but again, continuing that post sale, how did everything look? Isn't it really ends up being about relationship?
Yeah, definitely. Business for me in my business, I feel like in most businesses, is going to be just building that relationship with that customer so they know when they need X product, you're their guy for that. And that's what I've done and kind of try and continue to do now. And it's just growing that and getting more of the customers that you want.
Yeah, that's great. So, what's the most fun customer order that you've had from anything that someone said, "Hey, can you do this?" Does anything come to mind?
Okay, this may, I don't know if we can talk about this now. So this goes into another time that I took a risk, and this is how I literally got my biggest customer. So I'm sorry if we were going to say that later, I'll just say it now. But so my
No, let's
biggest
go.
customer, I don't want to say their name. I don't know if I'm allowed to or not, so I'll just leave them
Yeah,
out. So let's
yeah,
say
for sure.
XYZ customer. So I am playing pickleball at my local pickleball court, and I see this guy wearing this athletic type shirt, and I go, man, that's a really nice shirt. And an issue I was having is a lot of people wanted to use another brand, a very popular brand that everybody knows, but their decoration is very hard to do when you're a screen printer. They don't offer us good deals on the shirt, so it's very hard to quote. It's very time consuming because I have to sell their shirt at full price plus markup because we don't want to mess anything up. So it's like I need to find somebody else who can do this.
Mhm.
So I see this shirt and I'm like, you know what? Let me call these guys. And I call them. First time I call them, I talked to somebody on the phone and like, hey, no, we don't really do that. We don't offer wholesale. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea still to this day why, but I'm like, I'm gonna call them again and maybe I'll talk to somebody else. Sure enough, that's what happens. I speak with somebody else. They kind of tell me the same thing, but give me a little bit better. They tell me, hey, I don't know if we do this, but let me put you in contact with our CFO. And I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. So me and the CFO get on the phone and he tells me a little bit of the same. He says, hey, we don't really offer that, but we're actually looking for screen printers. Can you send me your contract price list? And I may send you some orders. Mr. Todd, I tell you at the time, I did not have a contract price list. I was usually just working with smaller businesses, XYZ. So now I have this huge juggernaut coming to me. And this is another time I took a risk. I didn't have a contract price list built. I didn't know what it was. So you know what? I went to a bigger printer. I got their contract price list and I just up their price maybe 20, 30%, sent it to him. I drank a Red Bull that night, stayed up till 3, 4 in the morning, made sure it looks good. Send this to him. The next day, Mr. Todd, I get to this day the biggest order I've gotten, and this was 3 years ago. It was 6,500 shirts. It came on a semi truck, 5 pallets deep, almost a full semi truck full of shirts. And to this day, it's still been my biggest order to date. So I'd say that's a fun order. I'm sorry it took me so long to say that, but that was
That's
an order I'll never
fantastic.
forget.
That's fantastic. And it's just again, our listeners, the young people I speak to around the country, they have this mindset like you've got to be, I don't know, to start a side hustle, which you did start a side hustle, which turned into your main hustle, right?
Hmm.
And so that's very inspirational for everybody watching and listening. Uh, and so what I'm hearing is you kind of flex. You're like, okay, I don't have this price list, whatever, but I'm gonna, yep, I've got one. And then you do whatever you can to come to the finish line with it. And so you just like, yep,
Definitely.
I've got it. Even though I don't, I'm still gonna figure out how to do it. And that's just what an entrepreneur mindset does. You just figure it out, right?
Definitely.
Uh, it's a great story. Great story. Okay, so what do you? Speaking of this risk taking, what do you think is holding people back, younger people back in their say their 20s, um, from taking risk? What do you think it is?
I mean, what's crazy is I don't think it's anything new. It's just people don't want to get outside of their comfort zone. You're comfortable in doing what you do because I guess you know it works. You're not familiar with what could be on the other side. You've never seen what's on the other side. So I'd say it's a lot of that. It's people, I don't even know if it would be they're afraid of being uncomfortable. They just don't know what that feels like. And then for me, as soon as that's like one of my favorite places to be in because it means you're getting ready to take a risk. You're getting ready to do something you've never done before. And even if it fails, you'll still learn something because even if you do take this risk and it doesn't work out, my company doesn't work out, the guy says, no, I don't have this conversation. I tried it, and that just fuels the fire to go take the next risk because I feel like you grow personally, your business, you grow by taking risks, by doing something you've never done before. You go to the gym, you lift more weights than you ever have. Your muscles are going to grow. You start a business and you start cold calling and you say, you know what, I'm going to call 20 people a day and I'm going to be adamant about that. I don't care how many no's I get. Somebody's going to say yes. They have to. The rules of numbers, somebody is going to say yes. And then your business is going to grow and you're going to keep that going. So it's just the to answer your question, it's people just being afraid to step out of their comfort zone to just take the risk. And for me, every time I feel like I've taken a risk, I've grown from it.
I'm going to take this last minute that you just shared and turn it into a reel on social media. I mean, it's that good, and you're spot on. And I'm not joking yet. So it's the truth. So with that, getting out of your comfort zone, which you did, and that's required of everybody who wants to start a side hustle or even try and start a business. And you said it. What if it does fail? Well, who cares? It's not like you have 5 kids and a family and all that stuff where you're like, well, hold on, I can't do it now. But and then what have you learned about yourself, Phil, when you've taken these risks and now are on your own? What have you learned about yourself that you didn't know until you took these risks?
That's a great question, Mr. Todd. And I feel like the one thing I've learned about myself from taking these risks and just getting outside of my comfort zone is that I'd say that I didn't know how much is possible or what was was even possible, what was even out there until I did these things. So I just learned that about me, that like you can't be scared, because like we've said, is when you take these risks, even if it doesn't work out, you're still getting out there, you're making yourself vulnerable. And when you get comfortable being vulnerable, the sky's the limit. Literally, the sky's the limit. Once you start craving that feeling, you have no idea what you're capable of. And I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at, is I didn't know what I was capable of doing, and I'm still just scratching the surface. But just getting in that state of vulnerability is just something I didn't know that I would crave and that I would like so much. And that's something that I would have never known if I wouldn't have taken these risks.
It's fantastic. There's no question those watching, listening to this Do Money Differently podcast, sponsored by Acorns, uh, you're that's inspiring. It's real. Um, I remember a good buddy of mine many years ago who was he wanted to leave the banking industry. He just happened to have an opportunity that was kind of related but unrelated. And I said the same thing to him, and he was in his 40s. That you'll never know how much you'll never know until you try, and then you'll be surprised at how much you find out about yourself. You're like, I didn't know I could do this, and so that fear, that is really the key component that holds a lot of anybody back. It's a normal emotion that we all have, fear. And I love the acronym. I talk about it all the time. That someone told me back, I don't know, 20 years ago, what the actual acronym of fear is. I went, wow, that's pretty cool. So I always use it to my with myself today. False evidence appearing real. Fear, false evidence appearing real. It's like 99.8% of my fears never happen. So it's all false evidence, right?
Definitely. I like that a lot, actually. I love that.
So, all right, let's get into that. We got about a few minutes left. Let's talk about your money stuff. And are you 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 still have the named savings accounts? Are you still
Oh, of
investing
course.
as we
Of
teach?
course.
Okay, you just never know. You never know. You still have your named savings account called fishing.
I do. I do have my name saving account called Fishing. The one thing I will say to the listeners, though, is as you grow your business, you will get busier, in sometimes you have less time for your hobbies because you have to grow your business. So my fishing savings account is actually looking pretty nice right now. I've not got to spend as much time as I'd like fishing because we're growing something, but I know
Yeah.
in due time I'll be able to get out on the water again. But we definitely do have our name fishing savings account still.
Fantastic. And because you're busy, this is perfect as well. I just thought of this. You're automating your savings. So money's coming out of your checking account automatically, right? This is key for
Hmm.
someone who's busy like you, right? Growing your business. Like the last thing you want to do is you still, in the background of your life, correct me if I'm wrong, you got your automated savings going, you have
Oh
automated
yeah.
investments going, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm that's another conversation for another day, but now I'm a business owner, so I have to pay myself, and I make sure as soon as that hits the checkings, the money's divided into the proper accounts. And a funny thing is none of that is going to my credit card right now. I have that thing paid off, and it is actually frozen in my freezer right now. I'm not touching that thing because those things are dangerous.
Your credit card is literally in your freezer.
Oh yeah.
I think that's hilarious and pretty cool at the same time. That's one way to stop temptation of overuse of a credit card. That's in the freezer. That's a love. I love it, Phil. Good
Oh,
stuff. Oh, any other before we sign off here? Any other words of wisdom for our listeners, whether it's money related, business related, starting a side hustle? Just what would you say to young people listening about trying something new?
I would say just do it, because if you do and you stick at it, I've been in my business since 2019. It's now 2025 and it doesn't even feel like that. And we've grown exponentially, but I wouldn't be here if I didn't start, if I didn't just take that risk and start. So I'd say if you're thinking about doing something, don't think about it any longer. Don't say, oh, maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Do it today and be quick about it. Get it done, get it started, and just go. And then you can figure it out from there because you literally never know what you're capable of until you try it. And if you never try it, then you'll never know what you're capable of doing.
That's fantastic. Well, that leads me to the kind of the challenge of the podcast that I do now with our listeners and readers is that if you liked what you heard from Phil Munroe out of Fort Lauderdale and his story from late teens to where he is now with his screen printing business, maybe there's something that you're good at that you thought, well, maybe I could turn this into a few $100 a month. Maybe it's, a young lady that is really good at makeup, and it's like, there's a lot of people that get married that need a makeup artist, if you will, for all the bridesmaids, and you would be shocked at how many women I say there's so many opportunities to make 300 to 1,000 bucks a month on the side doing what you like to do anyway, right?
Oh yeah.
And so that's just a challenge to our listeners. After you've heard Phil, think about things that you like to do that you're good at or you like to do and you're getting better at, and just think, what could I turn this into a money making endeavor? Just starting one customer at a time, like Phil did many years ago
Yep.
on his Facebook group, right? And so that's the challenge. Start thinking about, what do I like to do? How could I potentially turn this into a money making endeavor? And just take that acronym fear, false evidence appearing real, and throw it out the window as you start to write these ideas down. So, challenge of the week. Well, we are super thankful to have Phil Munroe on as our guest, and we're also equally grateful to have Acorns as our sponsor. A wonderful place to begin investing with spare change. And we will see all of you. And again, thank you, Phil, for being on. Uh, we hope to have you hear more from you maybe in a year from now to see where you're
Of
at.
course. Yeah,
And
let's do it.
it's fantastic. All right. Have a great day. Rest of the week, wherever you are. Thank you for listening to Do Money Differently.